Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great weekend out there so far. Here to bring you the latest that we got on what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Sunday. There is a risk of strong to severe storms for areas of the country. We'll break down that, talk about the differences between model guides that we're seeing with today's severe weather risk. And then there'll be a timestamp up for tomorrow's severe weather risk for your Monday to kickstart your work week. I think tomorrow is going to be our biggest severe weather day that we've seen in quite some time, really since I would say the last few to several weeks. As for the most part, we haven't had any significant severe weather events that has been comparable to, I would say, last summer. If you don't remember, last summer we had a lot of big time severe weather events, which was kind of weird, a little bit uncommon for like the middle to later portion of summer. This summer has been more of your typical type summer, but tomorrow will be a big event for areas of the north central U.S., the Dakotas, Minnesota, getting all the way into Wisconsin. So we'll have a timestamp up for that after we break down today's forecast. And then after we get done doing that, we'll give you an update on the tropics, talk about all the overnight and this morning's model guidance. Are we seeing anything out there? We'll talk about ensemble guides, what's going on out there right now. And we'll just, spend some time talking about the tropics. I may get a video out this evening. I know I said yesterday morning that I was going to try to get a video out last night. Did not end up happening. I'm just kind of gauging the evening videos off what I'm seeing during the actual day. If it looks like model guidance is beginning to latch onto something that we can really start to break down and talk about in the evening videos, then of course I'm going to jump on here and make one. But we're just kind of taking it day by day, so that's why I'm not speaking in absolutes or anything like, yes, I am going to make an evening video. No, I'm not. Just kind of going with the flow out here. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. So this is what's going on out there right now. We got moisture dancing off the coast of the Carolinas. Same thing down here in the northern Gulf of Mexico. Some of this moisture, though, is making it into the Baton Rouge, New Orleans area, sort of southeast Louisiana. A little bit of moisture just off the coastline of Mississippi. Maybe you guys are getting a little bit of rain down here in like Gulfport over to Mobile, Alabama. We do have some morning showers and downpours just off the east coast of Florida. Some of these are popping up over the peninsula of Florida. A lot of tropical downpours between Cuba and Florida. Got a big area of storms that's done surged out of the U.S. into Canada. Not affecting anybody in the lower 48 right now, though. But we do have a pretty decent flow right over the Rockies. In fact, it's still ongoing this morning. We're waking up to some showers across Utah, maybe some light rain across western Wyoming, eastern Idaho, and then we got some heavier rain across Nevada right now. It's pretty wild. I was watching some of that New Mexico football game. Obviously, it was in New Mexico, and they had some crazy windstorm that came out of nowhere. And what's wild is before this windstorm hit in this football game, it was like 31-14, and then the windstorm hit, and it's like a wind of change came over, and I think it was Montana State came back and beat New Mexico 35-31. So it was an interesting day of football yesterday. I'm sorry for you Florida State fans. I'm sure you're not loving it this morning too much with Georgia Tech beating y'all. But enough about football, here to talk about the weather. But we do have some showers up here in the Northeast. A little bit of heavier shower, even maybe some storm activity kind of in the far southern sections of southern Ontario, going over Lake Erie, starting to get into northern Ohio. But outside of that, that's all that's going on right now. Watches, warnings, and advisories, folks. It's going to be a pretty hot one. Across the middle of the country, all the way into the north central and midwestern states. In the purple, that's excessive heat warnings. I mean, it's going to get downright hot. Heat advisories, hot in those areas too. And some of these excessive heat watches, just heat alerts in general, has kind of oozed a little bit east in Chicago, northwestern Indiana. So we certainly are dealing with some nasty heat up here, that's for sure, for this time of the year. The excessive rainfall outlook, we have a marginal risk over the Four Corners region. I'm kind of surprised there's not a slight risk, as just looking at the model guidance over the Rockies. It certainly looks like we're going to get a lot of shower and storm activity across the Rockies today. Certain areas could get over an inch of rain, so we will speak on that once we get to the western U.S. timestamp for you folks. But, they're just going for a marginal risk. Now, the Storm Prediction Center outlook, we got a huge marginal risk of severe weather, level 1 out of 5 for areas of the Four Corners states, most of Colorado, a good chunk of Wyoming. This oozes all the way over to Wichita, Kansas, Woodward, Oklahoma, almost all the way down to Amarillo, Texas. So, these storms that will be widespread in this area will have a chance to pack a punch and be severe. There's a little baby marginal risk that does include some higher populated areas of Detroit down to Cleveland. There's a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather there. Looking at model guidance, it doesn't look very widespread in this area today, but we will speak on that a little bit when we get to the northeast timestamp. But then the main show is going to be the slight risk that extends all the way to the Canadian-U.S. line, goes through Fargo, Grand Forks, all the way down to Aberdeen, South Dakota, all the way to a very small section of northern Nebraska. Tornado risk of this is a 2%. So if you live in the green, that's a 2% risk of a tornado today. The wind threat, a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat is at a 15% risk also to see hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So we continue to move forward here to the southeast. All in all, not a very active day of weather across the southeast. Still pretty nice. You're starting to kind of lose that nice air mass now, so you'll notice it'll be a lot warmer across the Carolinas and Virginia and Georgia. Even yesterday was just a phenomenal weather day. Low humidity is starting to change. We're starting to get back to more so like a late summer pattern out here instead of an early fall pattern. But, we take it to about midday. We're going to have a lot of downpour activities sort of dancing around across Florida like we've seen over the last several days. We're going to get some shower and storm activity in southeast Georgia too. I mean, today's going to kind of be a rinse and a repeat of yesterday. It's going to be kind of the same sort of setup as yesterday. Downpours will be possible to likely across southeast Louisiana and will continue. I mean, you guys could pick up a good bit of rain down here in southwest Florida this afternoon to this evening. So just be aware of flash flooding and some of these storms packing a punch. The rest of the southeast up to the mid-south, I mean, all the way up to portions of the mid-Atlantic and Ohio Valley. I mean, pretty quiet weather today. A very nice Sunday expected for pretty much everybody else. Just really Florida, southeast Louisiana, and then southeast Georgia. Maybe some downpours might ooze all the way up to the South Carolina coastline. So the northeast today, all in all, pretty nice day. Now, if you compare today to yesterday and the day before, today, what makes the day different is the fact that you are going to have some scattered showers, maybe even some storms that drift in from Quebec. So you could get some storm activity in western Maine. You could get some downpour activity that slips all the way down to Vermont and northern New York State by this evening. So it's just some shower, maybe some storm activity possible, isolated to scattered. It's not going to be a big deal. As you're waking up tomorrow morning, though, we could wake up to more widespread rain across western Maine, maybe the northern section of Vermont and New Hampshire, maybe some shower activity all the way down to southern New England. All in all, not a big deal at all. So I will mention, though, don't want to forget, we're going to have a little bit of flow coming through southeast Michigan, all the way into, maybe the Cleveland area into like northeastern Ohio. You can barely see it on your map. You see that little spot right here of yellow and orange and red here. That could be in the form of a strong to severe storm or two, but this run of the HRRR model does not show this being a widespread threat. But as we know, these models aren't always conclusive. It doesn't always have its act together, that's for sure. Sometimes something else ends up happening that's way different than what the models are actually showing. So down here in the south central U.S. this morning is pretty quiet besides some rain along the southeast coastal regions of Louisiana. We take it to this afternoon. Look at the kind of popcorn in nature activity across areas of the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas, southwestern Kansas. Some downpours are possible in this area. Even some storms, some pop-up activity is possible down here in southern Texas. Also widespread showers and storms across areas in New Mexico, Colorado that you see over there through the afternoon and evening. This will continue. And then, once we get into tomorrow morning, I think we could wake up to some beneficial rains across, maybe, as you can see down here in southeastern and coastal regions of Texas. A little weak kind of tropical disturbance that we've kind of been talking about a little bit that kind of came off this trough, if you will, is going to try to spin and bring some moisture tomorrow morning in the form of maybe just some tropical downpours, maybe some storm activity across coastal regions of Texas. And, just to extend this a little bit further into tomorrow, definitely could get some widespread rains tomorrow into Texas. So, you guys need the rain. Have not seen a whole lot of widespread rain for the second half of summer. Really, since early summer, it's been pretty quiet down here. Besides, Hurricane Beryl making landfall here, what seemed like a decade ago, but really it was. It really was about over a month and a half ago. It's pretty wild to think about, right? But definitely a shot at some widespread rain tomorrow. Not today, for south central Texas. So hopefully this actually happens. I'm definitely pulling for you guys to get some rain, that's for sure. But we head on up here to the north central U.S. and we start this morning. We always do, and we get into about midday today. Not a whole lot going on. Remember, this entire area right here in the Dakotas and Minnesota has a slight risk. We get into this afternoon, there's still nothing really going on. And then we take it into this evening. We're starting to get a little bit of storm activity right in here. We go through the overnight hours. We see some big storms kind of north of the U.S.-Canadian line, north of Minnesota. But, it really takes all the way into the wee hours in the morning before this kind of oozes down to northern and northeastern Minnesota. So, you're like, well, why is there a slight risk today in this area? I didn't see anything. Well, if we kind of zoom into this, let's take a closer look. And we're actually going to move this to that and get the latest run. We take it to midday, nothing. And, we get all the way to about, 4, 5, 6 p.m. There is some storms showing up here. If you look at this run of the HRRR model, it doesn't look scary or worrisome or anything like that. But I do think the ingredients will be there for any convection that does form, like anywhere in South Dakota into Minnesota, for these storms to pack a punch. It's just, does anything get going? And you kind of flip it back to the latest long-range HRRR model that we got, and we keep this going. And, this is like 10, 11 o'clock in the evening, this evening, but just before midnight. We got some storm activity in this area. We got some bigger storms maybe back here in like eastern Montana. But all in all, in this slight risk area, it doesn't look that bad. We got some big storms maybe in the like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning out here. And maybe the western Dakotas, western South Dakota especially, could have a big area of storms that you're waking up to out here tomorrow morning. But it doesn't look that bad. Sorry I keep clearing my throat, guys. I don't know what's going on, honestly. I feel perfectly fine. Just weird. Just keep having to clear my throat. But, we look at the NAM model, compare it to the HRRR model. Does it show anything different? We take it to about midday, getting into this afternoon. Not really. It shows that same kind of area here in southern to central South Dakota where the area of storms developing, but it does become a little bit more widespread than the HRRR model around 10 to 11 p.m. tonight until about midnight in central to east central South Dakota. And this activity, it does continue all the way into Minnesota as we're waking up tomorrow morning. So it is a little bit different. So just be aware, strong winds, some hail, even a tornado risk is possible with these storms. The ingredients are there. There's just a capping mechanism in place, which means that there's basically an area of warmer air aloft that's preventing these updrafts from really getting going. The ingredients are there in the atmosphere. It's just the energy really cannot get going. It can't get tapped into because of that area of warm air aloft that's just really messing with these updrafts. So remember, typically with these storm develop, for us to get strong to severe storms, we really need cold air aloft. It likes what we call better lapse rates, which means the quicker that it cools, the higher up that you get in the atmosphere, the better your lapse rates. So that's typically a good ingredient for severe weather. So we might be lacking that somewhat because of that area of warm air aloft. So not to nerd out on you guys, I'm a little bit out of season when it comes to severe weather and break it down. As you know, when we're in spring, I'm in full severe weather mode. I'm more in tropics mode right now, so it's like I always have to re-go over the information in my head. It does not always come out quick and witty like. So we continue to move forward, though. We look at the Rockies. And this morning we already got some moisture out there. The HRRR model handling what's going on in Nevada pretty well right now. But, we get into this afternoon, widespread activity. Check this out. This is around 3, 4 p.m. We got a lot of storm activity up here in Wyoming, the western half of Colorado, widespread throughout New Mexico. We got a little activity in Utah and certainly in like eastern Arizona, but really just New Mexico up to Colorado, up to Wyoming. Widespread storm activity. So if you're vacationing out in the Rockies, it's going to be a stormy day. You'll get breaks in between, but certainly a pretty stormy Sunday afternoon, evening. You know, this is getting more so in the evening now. We still got these widespread storms. They're starting to get all the way up into southeastern Montana now. So if you're living there and you're tuning in from that area, some storms that could reach strong to severe limits are going to be possible to likely up here by the time we get into just after dinner time. But this continues, and of course, you know, things start to chill out a little bit once you get into the overnight hours, but we could still be dealing. You're starting to see more and more blue on the map, guys. Like here, you know, you look at Yellowstone National Park, which oozes into the, you know, northern Rockies of Montana. You know, you get way on up there, you're starting to get some gravel, a little bit of snow in these higher elevations. We're just getting a little bit closer to September now. So waking up tomorrow morning to just a lot of heavy rain. I mean, way up there in higher elevation, even heavy snow across the Rockies and just the central sections of Montana into the northwestern sections of Wyoming. So just be careful with these storms tomorrow that you're waking up to potentially, and somewhere maybe in the western half of South Dakota. So rainfall between now and the next 24 hours. Some areas you see in these blue, the yellow colors here in Colorado, even areas of Utah. I mean, that's like a half an inch to maybe an inch of rain. So some of these areas could get a good bit of rain today. I'm surprised there's no slight risk right in here, especially areas that have the opportunity to get hit by round after round of showers and storms. So we'll see if they'll make an uptick to that in the next outlook or two. So. But looking at temperatures today, it's starting to warm up for, you know, areas of the east that's been dealing with really nice temperatures. You know, even the northeast, you know, you're back into the 70s and 80s for the most part, unless you're way up there. And some of the higher hills and mountainous regions of the interior New England area. But, you know, the mid-Atlantic warming back into the 80s, even low 90s. Southeast, same thing, 80s and 90s. You know, the deep south continues to be pretty hot in the 90s. You know, Texas, Oklahoma, I think Texas will not see the widespread 100 degree plus temperatures today, but it'll still be very hot. It's really right there in the middle of the country. Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, that's going to see those just ridiculously hot temperatures. But, you know, the Midwest, 80s and 90s. Remember, we do have these heat advisories up here in the Midwest, excessive heat warnings. Remember, the criteria for heat is a little bit lower just because you're further north up in Minnesota. So if you're wondering why is there an excessive heat warning up in areas in Minnesota when it's only getting into like the upper 80s, low 90s. Well, you know, their criteria is just a little bit different than it is down here in like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, etc. And I think most would, you know that just based off the fact that they're just further north. But the middle of the country is scalding hot. I mean, it's burning up. But I'll tell you, man, the western U.S. is nice. I mean, if you like cooler temperatures in late August, nice. It is. I heard someone say, you know, this August, the last couple of days of August have been some of the coolest you guys have seen in quite some time. But it is nice out here. It feels like fall. This trough is overhead. You're directly under the influence of lower pressure, so temperatures are not warming up much, just with just cloud cover and just a cold front that's moved through. So enjoy your temperatures out west and all these microclimates that you got. There is a big time severe weather risk expected for tomorrow, folks, and this does include, it includes central to eastern sections of South Dakota, a section also of northern to northeastern Nebraska, extreme northwestern Iowa, all the way into the entire southern half of Minnesota, oozing a little bit into Wisconsin also. Minneapolis, you guys are included in this. Sioux Falls, Sioux City, you guys are included in this also. And anybody in between this orange area, I wish it showed more areas. You know, I could break it down state to state, but we'd be talking for a lot longer in this video. I might do that in the next video for you folks, just to show more towns and cities. But hopefully you know where you are in the state, and that's no, I'm not dissing on anybody. You guys know that, but you know, that's very important. It definitely is. But the tornado threat, there is a 5% risk of a tornado in the Sioux Falls area and any town and community surrounded around Sioux Falls. Minneapolis, you got a 2% risk as of now. So the tornado risk is up to 5% in this threat. It's not driven off a tornado threat, but I mean, there's a legit tornado risk. The wind threat tomorrow, There's a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles of any given location in this red area. If you live in the yellow, that's a 15% risk of that. And I didn't even really break down the outlook here. The orange is what we call an enhanced risk. The yellow is a slight risk. Enhanced risk is a level 3 out of 5. Slight risk, level 2 out of 5. Marginal risk in the dark green, that is a level 1 out of 5. So didn't want to leave you guys hanging with that if you're a first-time viewer or don't understand the Storm Prediction Center category risk. But this is the hail outlook. Listen, hail is going to be a big deal tomorrow across this area. In the red area, that is a 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The yellow, 15% risk of that. And then if you live in the black outline area embedded in the red area, that is where you have a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. It's what we call a hatched risk. So there's a chance in this case of significant severe weather, which in this scenario is hail. So there could be a hatch risk issued for wind for tomorrow also in the later updates, but we'll see what happens. But this is a big deal tomorrow. You know, if you're tuning in from the southern half of Minnesota, Minneapolis, down to, South Dakota, this is going to be a big day tomorrow. And what is driving this setup? Well, you got a trough digging down across the western U.S. And so on the right exit region of this trough, you basically have this nice mid to upper level flow riding right over the Dakotas into the Minnesota and then surrounding states also. So where you see this area in purple, even kind of pinkish purple color, this is where we have decent flow aloft. And if you're wondering, Mitch, what do you mean by flow aloft? Well, I'm talking about winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere in this case, over South Dakota, North Dakota, even getting into areas of Minnesota. That's where you have winds up to 40 to 50 knots, and in this case, about 18 to 20,000 feet up in the atmosphere. So those winds moving at close to interstate speed in the upper levels of the atmosphere create lift in the atmosphere, and they basically create wind energy in the atmosphere to drive the wind threat and just provide lift in the atmosphere for these storms to really get going. So plenty of lift here. This overrides a very warm, moist, unstable atmosphere, and this continues, folks. And with this entire area, and this is all the way out to tomorrow evening. So with this entire area right here, with plenty of flow aloft, you're going to have an opportunity for strong to severe storms. So you can check that off the box, and basically an impulse of upper level flow riding over this area. It's what we call sort of a short wave. There's many different weather terminology words that you can use, and I try not to lose you all with all that because sometimes it's just unnecessary to use in these videos unless it's really needed. But if you go and look at the storm fuel in the atmosphere, what we call CAPE, I'm not going to pull up dew points or anything. The dew points will be there. I mean, it's late August. We easily can get higher moisture levels in this portion of the country this time of the year. Okay, we're not deep into fall yet where we get a consistent dry air mass. It's still pretty early in the year. So we're starting off tomorrow morning, and this is mixed layer CAPE. And I mean, there's already rocket fuel in the atmosphere for these storms to really get going here. But you continue to move into about midday. Mixed layer CAPE over 4,000 joules per kilogram. There is tons of fuel in the atmosphere for these storms to really get going. Okay, this is really driven off that moist air mass. You got that mid to upper level flow riding over this unstable air mass. What do you get? You get storms to form. Once these storms form, they take advantage of all this storm fuel in the atmosphere, these higher CAPE levels. And that's exactly what happens. You see this explosion right here that kind of eats up all those highlighted colors around it. That's a storm forming, and then it forms, and it's like Pac-Man. It eats up all the fuel in the atmosphere. It's pretty wild. You can see it pretty well. I love pivotal weather for severe weather dynamics and stuff like that because it shows it the best, and eats up all that fuel in the atmosphere. And as it's doing that, it stabilizes the atmosphere, but it's also allowing to fuel up these storms to be very intense, and that's exactly what's going to happen for tomorrow. And if you look at the HRRR model for tomorrow morning into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and we're already going to be dealing with some storm activity up into midday. I mean, there's those storms forming up there in central Minnesota. Like, look at this. We're going to get supercells tomorrow. No doubt about it. I mean, look at these storms right here in this region here in South Dakota and Minnesota. We're probably going to get some storms back here too, because we have plenty of flow aloft over here too. And these storms could pack a punch over here in the high plains. But I'm really concerned about these storms here. These are like broken up supercells. They're going to have a risk of tornadoes, very large hail, and then they're going to impact the Minnesota area. I'm sorry, the Minneapolis area, Minnesota area, probably tomorrow afternoon to tomorrow evening. Look at these storms in southern Minnesota. These are going to produce some gigantic hail, probably some big time hail. A lot of fuel in the atmosphere, a lot of wind energy also. And we just got to be careful with these storms. We're going to break this down a little bit more extensively in the next video. But I mean, even as we're getting into tomorrow night, another complex of storms kind of rush through eastern South Dakota into the southern half of Minnesota. And this is as far out as we can go. So, you know, if you didn't take much from any of that, just know that, you know, in this area right here, I mean, here, I'm going to back it up and look at this. If you live in these areas right in here, there's a risk of strong to severe storms. So, there is a risk for Tuesday also across the entire area of the Great Lakes. So the entire lower Michigan area, a good chunk of Wisconsin, all the way down to Chicago, all the way over to Cleveland, all the way over to Buffalo, getting into the interior sections of New England. It's going to be a big, severe weather day across this area too. So we'll kind of break that down a little bit more extensively when we get a little bit closer to it. So an update on the tropics. Of course, we're going to start off by saying tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days per the National Hurricane Center. And we'll see if there is another update here. Yeah, here's the newest update, but you know, nothing's changed. We look at the Atlantic Basin, you know, including the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, etc. We'll see what's going on. I'm going to move my head way up here so you can see what's going on right off the coast of Africa. Folks, you know, there's no really pieces to discuss, no dominant areas of energy. A couple areas I do want to circle though. I want to show you guys this kind of area right here. There's nothing, I mean, you got this little area of convection, shower and storm activity. Anytime I say convection, just think of it as storm activity, shower and storm activity. I want to watch this as this kind of tries to sneak into the Caribbean, maybe the Southwest Atlantic. I mean, maybe somewhere into here over the next several days. Something might can get going. I'll show you exactly what I mean. And then, of course, this time of the year, I mean, it's late August. I mean, I think we're firmly into peak hurricane season now, in my opinion. We got to watch all this activity over here. I mean, you would think, hey, with everything we know about the background, the very warm sea surface temperatures, you would think something would get going out of all this. But this really isn't consolidated very well. But we need to watch all this activity way out here in the eastern Atlantic. Still much closer to Africa than it is to the U.S. and the Caribbean islands. So what is this going to do as it tries to kind of meander this way? I can tell you right off the dot, you know, no real model guidance has it doing anything. And then we just need to watch this little area here. But this is more so within, you know, the next 24 to 48 hours. You see that little spin right there? That is actually going to bring some beneficial rains to Texas. And remember, we've been talking about that for about a week. I don't think it's going to form into any kind of tropical system, but it is worth watching. So we'll kind of move my face back down here. And yeah, that's what's going on right now. So nothing to really discuss, right? So we're going to zoom this into the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico first. I want to show you the latest GFS. The last few to several GFS runs has liked the idea of something forming closer to home. So what happens here is it's going to be hard to see it until it actually shows an L on your screen indicating low pressure. So we're going to take it into Tuesday. We take it into Wednesday. We take it into Thursday. You still don't really see anything but just kind of splotches of green, right? I mean, nothing out there. And then I want you to kind of look at this area right here. See, there's kind of a deeper dark green splotch of green, maybe even some yellows in there. And watch what happens with that area. That's a little tropical disturbance that kind of gets over somewhere over the Bahamas. It starts to, you know, bring a lot of deep tropical moisture over Florida. This is some sort of weak disturbance. We get a week out from today. Like, this is for next Sunday evening, a week from now. This little disturbance kind of sneaks into the Gulf of Mexico, of course, tries to develop really fast, deepens all the way almost to a hurricane, a strong tropical storm, makes landfall as a tropical storm next Tuesday morning on the latest GFS. Okay, is that going to happen? I don't know. If we look at the run prior to this, there's nothing really. The run prior to that, it's there, guys. It's just surging a bunch of moisture into the Carolinas and Georgia. And we just, you look at that run, there it is. This was like a few GFS runs ago. So GFS has been kind of consistent with showing some sort of energy riding over the Greater Antilles. And if you look at a better way, I wouldn't say a better way of looking at this, when you're trying to find energy in the atmosphere before it actually shows the precipitation output of it, this is the best way to do it. This is energy at 500 millibars, mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. So we take it into Tuesday, we take it into Wednesday, we take it into Thursday, we take it into Friday. That energy is kind of right into here. I know it doesn't look any different than this over here or this down here, but it's right here. And you keep this going, and it's actually going to pop up a little bit more out there, a little bit more vibrant on the screen here in a second. So we take it about a week from today. There it is, kind of right over the Tampa Bay area, and then it sneaks into the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see how it begins to really get into a dark orange, orangish kind of red color now. So that is where the energy really consolidates, starts to get that circulation to it, and then makes landfall sometime early next week. So see how it kind of almost actually pointed at my screen like y'all can see my finger. You see how it starts right here? All right. And then you keep it going, and it's hard to keep your eyes on it, but eventually it gets to the Gulf of Mexico and develops. So that's something to watch. Okay. What about the Euro? Does the Euro have anything to do with this energy? For the most part, the answer would be no. There's tropical moisture over the Greater Antilles later this work week. It does show a little moisture in this area. And there's probably a little bit of a mid-level spin, mid to upper level energy there, but nothing really gets going at all. Not even a little bit. So it looks like it might just bring deep tropical moisture into Florida, but nothing really forms into an all-out tropical cyclone. So that's the little closer to home thing to watch, right? Just something to watch. We'll have to see what happens. Now you go out here, if you're wondering where we're at now, this little piece of land right here, that is Africa. It's the Greater Antilles, the Leeward Islands, etc., Puerto Rico, and then Hispaniola. And this is the MDR, the main development region, where this time of the year we really begin to keep our eye out on, because especially as we get in early September, this is when we can have those long tracking tropical cyclones. So is there anything out here? We're kind of going to go back to GFS. Remember, I just showed you all that activity that's right here. My face is in the way again, right here. Is anything going to try to develop out of this? We go back to this. Here it is. There's the big blob of green indicating some tropical moisture, monsoon trough energy. Is anything going to develop? No, it does not. We get all the way a week from today, nothing still. Here comes another attempt at a big tropical wave or just tropical moisture and energy. Does that get going? No, it does not. At this point, we're 10 days out. We're getting to 300 days, not 300 days, geez, 300 hours out. We're all the way out until like Friday of September 6th, even though there's no point even showing this. It's too far out. And folks, we go all the way to the end of the run, and there is absolutely nothing. And I've been saying this for 7 days. It's like, wow. Are we going to be doing this the entire hurricane season? It's pretty wild stuff, guys. It really is, that we're just not seeing anything in the longer range. We continue to not see anything in the longer range. The European, what is it showing? Well, I would say the Euro is a little bit more there with some sort of tropical energy. You see kind of the blobs of green down here. That is, you could probably call that maybe a tropical wave, especially this one right here. Watch how this one kind of screeches across your screen there. And then we get all the way to about, let's just stop it right here. We get all the way out to about the Tuesday, September 3rd. So not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday. You want to watch something like right here. Right here. That looks like something trying to get going here. And if you flip it and you look at 500 the 500 volt map, there is something into there. And there's like right here, you see this area right here, there's some sort of wave right into here. And I really think that kind of in the middle, kind of in the longer range, I really think this is one feature to watch. And you know, it kind of is somewhere right in here about 10 days from now, getting into the Caribbean. So I think that would be something to watch. I really do. Now I want to show you this, and I have not showed this in the last several weeks. It's got some attention in the weather community out there. It's called the Euro AI model. And from what I've heard, it does well. I mean, that's all you pretty much can say. It does pretty well. So I'm going to start off by saying, before I show you this model has been incredibly consistent with showing what I'm about to show you. It has not lost this particular scenario or anything like that. So I'm going to show you it, and I'm going to talk about it here. So here's the Euro AI model. It takes some energy kind of in the same time frame as the actual Euro does. It has that wave here. It's moving a little bit faster on this model run. We get into about 10 days from now. It takes what I think is the same wave that the Euro is showing, gets it as a tropical storm north of Hispaniola, starting to get to the Turks and Caicos Islands 10 days from now, develops this into a hurricane just outside the Bahamas, impacts the Bahamas as a hurricane, and Bubba, this is 288 hours out, okay, and takes it to near major hurricane status off the coast of the southeast. Not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. So literally 2 weeks from now, just about, and then makes a close pass and turns out to sea. If something like this was to happen, this would obviously be one of those long tracking tropical system scenarios. So you think, okay, your question is how reliable is that? My answer would be, I'm not sure. What we're about to find out, I think, as a whole, as model, as we break down models, is how much can we rely on this model? So what I would say is, if something like this even comes somewhat close to happening, then it's a pretty big win for this model that's relatively new out here in the scene. So I think you break it down like this is either going to be a huge L for this model and really tell us that, hey, we don't really need to take this model that serious, in my opinion. That don't mean we don't need to occasionally look at it, because all models kind of can miss a scenario sometimes, or it's going to be a major win for this model. We need to start showing it more and paying attention to it more. So something to watch, and let's see if we have a new run of this in. This kind of runs at weird times. We do not. So this is actually the one from yesterday evening. But what I can tell you guys, if we look at the European ensemble, this is the way we'll wrap this one up. It's actually dropped off model guidance on this wave forming. You compare this run from overnight with the run yesterday afternoon, and yet the run yesterday afternoon had more members and stronger members. So it's a tough one to figure out there in this hurricane season. It's probably one that, since the 4 years I've been breaking down the tropics on my YouTube channel, I've been 4. This has been the toughest one. So that's all I got. God bless all y'all. You have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again soon.